Liz and I, in 2018, made an excursion to France in our little motorhome. It's not particularly big, it's a Ford Transit-based motorhome, and even though it's rather small, it's got everything we need. It's got a double bed, kitchen, bathroom, and of course, well stocked with red wine. Travelling through northern France, you cannot help but recognise many of the names on the road signs: Cambrai, Arras, Le Mans, Verdun, and so on. All are famous names from the First World War, and as you travel further, it is inevitable that you will see signs for military cemeteries. The country is littered with these cemeteries, some huge and impressive, and some small, but all quiet, silent, and filled with a sadness for a generation lost in the carnage of war. At each one we visited, there were many graves labelled simply "A Soldier of the Great War, known unto God." Soldiers whose remains were unrecognisable in death, their documents and serial numbers blown to pieces in one of the many artillery bombardments on the Western Front. The conflicts of the First and Second World Wars left their mark on the landscape in various ways, and even today, farmers in the Somme and other places continue to dig up artillery shells and other reminders of the past. All the cemeteries we stopped at were all picture perfect in their own way. The lawns were incredibly neat, the hedgerows immaculately trimmed. Sadness pervaded these sites like a scent coming over from the adjacent fields. Although there was a feeling of peace, of slowness, and a feeling that time has stopped here, or perhaps just slowed. That's not strange when you think that time must have speeded up during the action of the First and Second World Wars, so it seems only fair that nature must compensate, that time must slow later to make up for the fast and frantic earlier time. You can imagine the pace of things even 100 years ago, the early morning bombardment, the whistles blowing as officers call their troops to go over the top, the advance parties who made ahead to cut the barbed wire, the troops walking apprehensively forward until they walked into the deadly machine gun fire that cut most of them down. Many found their final resting places in these cemeteries, places that are now quiet and peaceful with a silent beauty, timeless and moving, with the beat of nature as a backdrop. Others have no resting place, their bodies blown to pieces by artillery shells, their names marked on marble walls, forever missing in action. At one place, on the road to Soissons, we stopped by the road to find a huge sword standing in the rock. Like a giant Excalibur, it stood there waiting to be pulled by some giant hand, bearing silent witness to a long ago battle from the Second World War. Later we went to the village of Ors to find the grave of Wilfred Owen, one of the outstanding poets of the First World War. He's buried in the local cemetery where there are a number of soldiers' graves. It was sad to see that he died on the 4th of November 1918, only a matter of days before the armistice. He was only 25 years old and, interestingly for me, was a member of the Manchester Regiment. Manchester, of course, being my hometown. We left Ors saddened by the events of 100 years ago. Another interesting place is Épelec in northern France. It's a vast concrete blockhouse where the Nazi regime launched their V weapons at the UK. First was the V1 Doodlebug and then the first rocket missile, the V2. The place was rendered unusable by the efforts of the RAF bomber crews. All the places mentioned here had their moments in the spotlight of world history. They all lived through times of accelerated pace when time flowed swiftly. Perhaps it's their time now for a quieter pace, while time flows slowly.